a lot of people sort of think you're indulging in conspiracy theories when you talk about Bill Gates. But Bill Gates himself has said certain things which are not, the result of a conspiracy theory. They're what he's saying himself about what he's intending and what his plan is. He's already talking about the next round and need to plan for a new test treatments, new vaccines after the end of the COVID-19 pandemic, mapping out a battle plan for the next time a dangerous new pathogen appears. An annual letter from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Microsoft founder, called for billions of dollars in investments to develop a global alert system for emerging germs and build the capacity to respond quickly. We can't afford to be caught flat-footed again, Gates wrote, to prevent the hardship of the last year from happening again. Pandemic preparedness must be taken as seriously as we take the threat of war. Also, what's interesting is that according to Gates, this campaign has got to be linked to a campaign to save the world from the environmental crisis. So let's introduce another issue which is going to become more and more relevant in the coming year, in the coming decade as well. When we say Bill Gates wants to save the world, some people say you're saying he's the Messiah or he's some Antichrist figure. No, we're just saying what his people who support him say. It's not a mad conspiracy theory. There's a news magazine called Wired Magazine, which has praised Bill Gates as the man to save the world. And he's going to save the world by helping to reduce carbon emissions. The article investigates, quote, how Gates plans to achieve a zero carbon world, and promotes his new book, which argues it's time to make real societal, economic and logistical changes to our way of life to avoid disaster. According to Gates, the planet needs to reach zero carbon emissions in order to avoid catastrophe. So this is the next thing you're going to see coming down the road. I'm going to tell you we've got to move towards zero carbon emissions. So what does that mean? Well, what causes carbon emissions? Driving cars, planes, electricity produced by coal, gas, etc., heating your homes, and apparently eating meat as well, because one of the issues apparently is that eating meat is something which is adding to the CO2 in the world. And it's interesting that Bill Gates has started buying up farmland in America. He's bought up 242,000 acres of farmland in the US, making him the biggest owner of farmland in America. He said that eating meat is a major source of carbon emissions, causing global warming, so we should change our eating habits. And one proposal is to create synthetic beef using fungus to make sausages and yogurt. And there's a kind of growing thing about meat eating, and you shouldn't do that. Now, Gates' critics are saying that he's kind of monopolizing, attempting to move to monopolize global food production and bring in some kind of a control system through some, quote, dark form of philanthropic capitalism based on biopiracy and corporate biopiracy. Big long words there, but basically means controlling the food system. On January the 29th, the German parliament, the Bundestag, moved to ratify what they call Agenda ID 2020, which is a centralized data collection program that will be used ultimately to identify all of humanity. Under this program, the private data of all Germans and eventually all humans will be made available to every government agency, police department and private sector company that wants it. Covers all that is known about the individual citizen, now up to 200 points of information, and possibly more as time goes on, from your bank account to your shopping habits, your health records, vaccination records of course, your political inclinations, and even your dating habits and other entries into your private sphere, writes Peter Koenig for Global Research. Now this program is designed by none other than Bill Gates. Agenda ID 2020 is part of a larger vaccination package sponsored by the Rockefeller Foundation, the World Economic Forum, and the Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunization. Now, if you couple this with control of the world's food supply, you can see it would be a way in which submission to the dictates of the New World Order will be linked to the ability to buy and sell food and feed yourself and your family. So you've got global ID, food production, passes for entry into society. How does that all come together? Maybe those who say this has something to do with the emerging 666 system and Revelation 13 are not so far from the truth. And there's a fear by some that it'll be part of a plot to bring in a new world order, the global reset, in which we'll lose most of our freedom of speech, belief, ability to travel, ability to express our opinions, and end up with ultimate control by a big brother techno system that monitors our movements, our opinions, and ultimately controls our ability to function in society. And if you read my last Light for the Last Days or listened to my last talk, you may remember I mentioned a man called Klaus Schwab, who is talking about a global reset after the COVID emergency, which he said that every country from the United States to China must participate, every industry from oil to gas, and tech must be transformed. In order, we need a global reset of capitalism for global leaders to shape the future state of global relations, the direction of national economies, the priorities of societies, the nature of business models, and the management of a global commons. And Schwab said, the pandemic and the environment might seem to be only distant related cousins, but they're much closer, more intertwined than we think. One of the connections is that big powers have used both issues to make people terrified of things to come that will destroy their lives, either COVID or the environmental crisis, so they'll accept the big changes which the global government wants to make in their lives.